What's going on, everybody? It is TripleCrown24 back today. Over the last few weeks, my feed has been bombarded with many videos talking about shill bidding and market manipulation. Now, this isn't uncommon. Usually there's some kind of controversy that comes up with this multiple times a year, and a lot of content creators make a video on it. People talk about it, then it kind of fades into obscurity when the next controversy comes up, and then it cycles back into the feeds again, etc., etc. It's nothing new. This is something that's been going on for decades, but it seems like this specific controversy that snowballed from two guys on a podcast with some prominence in the hobby talking about and admitting to the practice of shill bidding and market manipulation that has stirred the pot to a point where there are a lot of people asking questions now. A lot of those questions rooted in fear. People wondering what is real and what is not when it comes to auctions and sold prices of cards, comps, if you will. I'm here to tell you right now that no matter how many more people make videos on this, including myself, no matter what size of their channel may be, or how many people click on the video, how many people talk about it, chances are nothing will really change with this. I'm sorry to say that, but there probably won't be any major changes or major fallout that impacts the sports card hobby, and I'll say it as the sports card industry as a whole. What that doesn't mean, though, is that we as individuals cannot take different actions to try to combat market manipulation. I think that is what is most crucial here. And I hope that is what anybody listening to this takes away from what I'm about to say today. Because we may not be able to change it. And in fact, we probably can't. What I think is really important, though, is to understand why it happens, how it happens, and what we can do to make sure it doesn't negatively impact us to the best of our ability. Why does it happen? The answer is pretty easy. Money. That's why. Any space where you're talking about the sale of goods and services where money is involved, specifically with goods, and people can benefit financially or find themselves in financial ruin over it, there is going to be some bad actors in that marketplace. If there's money to be made, it will usually invite unruly activity. Does that mean that we need to exit the hobby? Because, well, it's no longer a hobby. I can't get enjoyment out of it. It's negatively impacting me. No. Because then we're living our lives in fear. And if we live our lives in fear, then we really, in my opinion, fail to live at all. We cannot let fear dictate what we're doing here. We just have to understand that they're doing it for money. And how are they doing it? How are people shill bidding? There are different types of shill bidding. I know some people have said, well, there's no such thing as offensive shill bidding and defensive shill bidding, special teams shill bidding. I think that there are different motivations for doing it. Let's talk about the auction houses themselves. How often are they shill bidding? I don't know, but I'm willing to bet it goes on. I won't name any specific ones where I think it goes on, but I'll leave it up to your imagination. There are times where auction houses, especially on really large cards, are trying to promise people that, hey, we're going to get you this for this, or they'll have price estimates, and it's usually not a good look when your price estimate falls way short of what the auction actually ends for. What it can do is create this distrust, and all of a sudden people don't want to consign with your auction house anymore. Conversely, the auction houses have to balance the people bidding on the auctions. They cannot lose their trust to make them feel like they are bidding and playing a game in which they will never truly win. And if they do win, the house is going to reap the benefits from it. They are paying a very inflated price, and unfortunately that inflated price is completely artificial. So if you lose the trust of those buyers, you no longer have a platform. If you lose people consigning with you, and you no longer have items to sell, you no longer have a platform. It's in the best interest of auction houses to make sure both their buyers and sellers are both happy, because the two depend on one another. It also helps that these auction houses are going to get a little bit of juice, as we call it, from every single card that is sold on their site. How much that is depends on how the site's fee format works out. Different cards have different payouts on them. But generally speaking, the more a card sells for, the more that auction house is going to get from it. Meaning there probably isn't a lot of incentive in that regard, aside from keeping the trust of your buyers to stopping the shill bidding. If the auction houses even tried to crack down on it, chances are the bad actors would find a way around it. That's what they do. If the auction houses aren't going to change it, maybe the people shill bidding will stop, and that is laughable. They are not going to stop. Even if they do stop, whether they're forced to or they have some moral awakening, there will be someone ready to take their place. It happens every single day. Why are they doing it? Again, money. But there's a couple of different types of shill bidders. There are those who are sending their own card to auction. And anytime you send a card to auction, there is an inherent risk that you will not get what you want for the card. There's also a chance that you will get more than you wanted for the card. But I find that oftentimes a lot of auctions will end lower than a fixed priced format, being buy it now, or someone making an offer on a buy it now, where the price is set in stone, there is no auction to it. I think a lot of that has to do with the timing of it, right? I'll give you an example. I am building a 2020 Prism Blue Ice set. There are times where certain larger cards will come up to auction and I will simply forget to bid on them. I was serious about it. I wanted to buy the card, but I forgot to bid. I just didn't. It didn't come across my mind. I had other things going on. And therefore, when you put me on that time crunch where like, okay, this is when the card ends, you have to bid for it now. If it's not a priority for me, oh well, then I'm not involved in that. And if you get enough of those people who are really serious buyers who actually do follow through and do bid, then that can significantly turn the tides of how an auction goes. It really only takes two to tango. And if you get two people in a bidding war, the results can be very drastic. You can send the same card to auction 10 times and get a wildly different range of outcomes and price. Believe me, I have seen it before on both ends where I've sent cards to auction that go for about a fourth of what all previous sales were. I've also sent them to auction before where I set the new all-time high. It is crazy, and there's no real way to fully predict it. There are certainly things that you can do, such as ending the auctions at a time that people are actually available, they're not at work or whatever they're doing. A time where people aren't crunched by, say, the holiday, or it's not during a game or something when people actually want to watch the game instead of bidding on the card. There are ways to maybe tip the scales in your favor, but there's no real way to say with 100% certainty that you have found the perfect time to auction a card. You will not know that until it is over, and even then, you still won't know that. Maybe there was a better opportunity for you. There is such a thing as a reserve price. It's not used a whole lot anymore. Some auction houses will tell you what the reserve price is, and what that means is that an auction will start at, say, $1 or whatever, but the sale will not go through unless that reserve is met. If I have a card I send up to auction, I can start at $1, but I'm not taking any less than $500. You're free to bid on it, but you need to bid at least $500 if you want it. And that is a policy and a format that is set up within pretty much every single auction house. You can set a reserve. You have to pay for it on some places, but you can set a reserve. And if it isn't met, then you keep your item, and the buyer is not out any of their money. But it's not used a lot of times, and even when it is used, there is always that incentive for the seller to try to get a little bit more, of course. Then there's the other side of it. You have sometimes people who are shill bidding who are not involved with the auction house and who are not involved with the actual seller of the card. They don't know each other. But that person may have a vested interest in the market of a specific card, especially if it's something that doesn't pop up too often. For me, I have a card that would fit the bill for this, It's a very sought after card. You could even say it's a grail if you collect this player. It's a 2007 exquisite Calvin Johnson true RPA out of 99. Go look up the sales history of this card and you will see that within the last couple of years, you can probably count on one hand how many times this card has come up for sale and has been sold. If one were to pop up for auction today, and I had an interest in selling mine at some point, it would definitely be in my best interest if that auction ended up going higher, right? Because then I can use that as leverage when I go to sell my card. Now, I have no interest in selling my Calvin Johnson RPA. It's not for sale. But if I was interested, wouldn't that make sense? Or, say, if you look at the sales history of the card, the most recent sale of it is more than double what the previous sale was. In fact, it might even be more than triple if you calculate the math. It's pretty darn close. Now, how realistic is that last sale? I don't know, but I want to maybe protect that sale. I'll bid up this new one that just came up for auction just so it makes this other high sale look a little bit more realistic. It's why if you take any kind of communication, especially persuasive communication class, they'll usually tell you that numbers are one of the weakest points in an argument because they can be so easily manipulated to fit a narrative one way or another. And in the case of sports cards, shill bidding, market manipulation happens all the time. It even happens in small ways, I would argue. You could say even the people at the shows who come up to me and say, last one did, last one did, last one did. You realize how many times I hear that at a show? It happens more times than I can even fathom, where people want to tell me what the last one did or what the last two did or whatever is most convenient for them to fit their narrative. If they are selling to me, well, the last one did this because this is an exceptionally high sale. And I'm willing to bet if I go back and look at all the other sales, that one is some sort of outlier or it is at least the highest of the last 5. Conversely, if I'm the one who's selling, all of a sudden it is the last 2 sales. It happened to me this past weekend. Someone pointed out, oh, well, the last 2 did this. Conveniently, that was the cutoff point where they were more, this card had sold for more. And those 2 sales that they quoted, the third sale was only a day before those 2. So is there some magical cutoff that happened there? No, there wasn't. It was just that was what was best to fit their narrative. People will use numbers to make an argument any which way they possibly can. But there has to be some context behind the numbers. I think that's what we have really lost sight of. And again, I'm not here to sweep for any shill bidders. I'm not here to defend the practice. I think it's wrong. I want a healthy sports card market. That's what I want. I want one where people can feel like they can be happy with what they sold their cards for, and I want buyers to feel happy with what they can buy their cards for. Those two interests are oftentimes at odds, unfortunately. It means that someone's probably going to be a little less happy, at the very least, than the other person. There is no way to avoid that part of it. But that to me is what a healthy market looks like. How can we avoid the bad actors? How can we do it? Well, it just takes some critical thinking. Now, it could be really obvious, right? There could be one where it's a card that sells pretty often, and the sales are 27, 28, 32, 21, and then buy it now at $79.99. Is there a chance that maybe that's legitimate? Sure. But even if it is legitimate, and it's a card that has sold 5 times in the last month, well, let's be real here. It's probably an outlier. Realistically, if I were to go sell that card again, would I find someone to pay $80 for it again? Probably not, because that's the only instance that someone was ever willing to pay $80 for that card. Usually they're willing to pay $25 to $30, it seems. So I'm going to price it around $30, because that's probably more realistically what someone is willing to pay for it. Now, there are times where you will set the high sale. I just did it as I record this video. I sold the card the other day. It was a Mike Trout card. The previous sale of it was like $375 in a PSA 9. I just sold my 8 for $450. The buyer paid for it. The card is already on its way to authenticity guarantee. As I talk about this and as I put this video out and you listen to it, it's a legitimate sale. They bought the card. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Now, it is someone who I know and they're a collector, so they're going to keep it for their collection. But it's a card that is very sought after. And I paid what people would say is paying strong on it based on the fact that it was an 8 compared to what the 9 previously did. But the reason I bought it is because it's a Mike Trout card that is pretty sought after. It's a certain parallel that is very popular. And if you look at the general market trend of it, these cards have started to dry up. There aren't that many that pop up. And I knew because of that strong demand and that short supply that there probably would be someone who really wanted it for their collection where I could get more than what that last sale was, which is why I bought it. And in this instance, I was correct. I am not always correct. There are times when I do that and I am wrong. And I end up holding on to the card for a long time. And maybe eventually I take a loss on it. It happens. You don't get to win every single time. And if you do, chances are you're probably rigging the game in your favor some way through nefarious means. But if we look at it in the grand scheme of things, look at the whole market picture, not just focus in on what the last one did, it'll usually tell us more about what is going on in the market. Now we're in the middle of an auction, and we're wondering, oh, is this being shill bid right now? There is no way that we will truly ever know. We can look at the bidder IDs and try to figure out, oh, okay, this looks a little suspicious that they're bidding like this. There is no way to truly know unless someone explicitly tells us this. Especially if it's a card that doesn't pop up for sale too often. You don't know if you are just really duking it out with a very avid collector who absolutely has to have this card. There are times where I've gone to war with people on a card and then I see it posted up on their Instagram and I'm like, dang, they got the better of me in that auction. They must have really wanted it. And knowing the person who won it, I'm like, yeah, they definitely really wanted that card. Especially on really popular players, really popular inserts. It's the Wild West sometimes. It only takes 2 to tango. You get those 2 right buyers going at it back and forth, the auction results can get out of hand in a hurry. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was shill bid, but it also doesn't mean that it's going to happen again the next time it comes up. Because number one of those 2 people just got the card. They are most likely not looking for another one. That takes one of the biggest buyers off the market immediately. And who knows what the circumstances will be the next time it comes up for auction. Maybe that person who was bidding before lost their job. Maybe they're saving for retirement. Maybe they're taking the family on a Disney vacation. That money's going somewhere else. And if it happens to be that that auction falls at an inconvenient time for them, then they're not bidding. And you lost out on that, and then the market might say, well, now this card is only worth this, but really it's because you didn't have the right buyers looking at it at that time. That is the kind of flawed nature of auctions, is that people say, oh, well, if you want to know what a card is truly worth, send it to auction. And I could not disagree with that more. It's because auctions can be so easily manipulated, as can fixed price things, but you are putting a time limit and you are not optimizing your chances of finding the buyer that would pay the most for a card. What you are finding is who is willing to pay the most in a specific window that is at their convenience. Or your convenience, rather. Their convenience would be a buy it now, when they can make an offer any time that they feel they want to. There's not a certain parameter of time in which they have to bid. You're not forcing them to take that action. And in some instances, that can work out in your favor. The pressure, the thrill of being involved in a high-stakes auction. Just look at whatnot streams, if you want a good example of that. People lose their damn minds swiping that button to try to bid up cards, when they could go on eBay and buy the card for about 1/4 of that price. That's a whole different discussion for a different day. But understanding that there are going to be people out there who are bad actors who want to drive up the market on these cards, and knowing that, yes, the shill bidding can occur, And yes, we might bid against collectors who really want a card, or we might be bidding against someone who has ulterior motives in mind. Should not stop us from bidding. Because at the end of the day, when you are placing a bid, it is up to you to determine what you are comfortable paying. It's not about, oh, what is the best price I can get for this? Maybe it is, but we are so obsessed with these comps. Oh, the last one did, the last one did, the last one did. That was a card that sold. It is a different market than what the last one sold for. You may never see that card for that price again. There's probably some Shohei Ohtani cards that haven't sold in 3, 4, 5 years. I'm willing to bet you will not get those cards for the same price that they sold for back then. I'd bet a lot of money on that. Probably enough for you to be able to go buy those cards. That you will not be able to get them for what the last one sold for. In fact, nobody may be able to get those cards for that price ever again. That's how it works. I don't think you're going to be buying a 52 mantle PSA 1 for under $1,000 anytime soon. I just don't. Unless you are the luckiest person on earth and you stumble into some crazy situation, I wouldn't expect that. That card is never going to be that price again. Things change. Demand changes. And believe it or not, there are people who actually want to own these cards too. There are people out there who really want to own them. And they set a price not based on what the previous sales were, not based on what they can possibly flip the card for. It's based on how badly do they want it and how much are they willing to pay to ensure that they get it. And that's something that you just can't compute sometimes. It happens on cards of very obscure players. It happens on very common cards of well-known players. It happens all across the board. Sometimes you find someone who gets obsessive over one card, and they absolutely have to have it. And they are comfortable setting a number for themselves. And maybe they get bid up all the way because of a shill bidder. Maybe they absolutely have to have it, and that information somehow gets out to a shill bidder. What I would say is, unless it's a really good friend that you trust, don't tell people what you're bidding on. Don't share it on Instagram. Hey, I'm bidding on this tonight, or anything like that. Because then it might get back to the wrong person, and they may make you really pay for it. Keep it close to the chest. You don't need to flex that you're bidding on a card. Bid on it, win it, receive it, and then show it off. That's how you can kind of protect yourself. You don't have to post your entire bid activity out there and wave a flag that says, hey, look, I'm willing to really pay strong for this card. Feel free to come bid me up. You don't want to do that. Trust me. I've done it before, where I've talked to people and then they went and they bid it against me. It happens. Now, a good friend wouldn't do that to you, but, not everybody's a good friend, right? I mean, it happens out there. So be careful of that. Make sure you're aware that what you post and your desperation maybe for a card can be used against you if you show it in an auction format. And yeah, it may suck that a card that you really want, where you do know what you want to pay for it, and you do set a number that you're comfortable with, and that bid isn't enough. And it might be because it was shill bid. It might be that card then gets relisted for auction again. And you're disheartened because, well, maybe if the shill bidder wasn't there, I would have actually gotten it for the price that I wanted, and now I have to try to win it again. Maybe I have to pay more. It sucks. It really does suck. I don't know how we get away from that part of it. I really don't. But we can do the best that we can. We cannot live in fear thinking that we're in a state of constant paranoia where, oh, this is being shill bid. This is being shill bid. Every single auction of every single big or rare card that I'm bidding on is shill bid. If we live in fear, then we will cease to enjoy the hobby. So this is me putting out there some words of encouragement. Is that if we don't chain ourselves to what the last one did, and we're able to think through and set smart, thoughtful bids that make sense to us as individuals based on what we are willing to pay, what we are comfortable with, I think it will mitigate a lot of the frustration that will be caused by the bad actors that inevitably always find a way to rear their ugly heads back into it. And thank you for listening. I hope that you were able to take something away from this. Have a great weekend.